Hey, how you doing? Okay, what we're doing now is we're going to start building this, and we're basically using this as a scaffold. Yeah? Now then, 3ds Max is busy doing something. It's probably going to crash because it likes crashing. You notice the words "not responding" at the top. Okay, so as you could see, 3ds Max was crashing. However, because I just needed to keep an image of what it was that was being used as a scaffold, I just pressed I just pressed print screen and pasted this into Paint. Okay, now you may have the original still. I'm not even going to bother loading it. I'm going to work directly from the scaffold image reference that I have here, simply because it's a good height reference for me anyway. Right, the first part that we're going to build is the footplate. So for this, I'm going to build a cylinder, and I'm going to drag it out from the 0 coordinate here. Now, I tend to press F4 just so that I can see what's going down, and I'm going to reduce this to one segment. Convert it to editable poly. And we're going to have a naming convention here. So this is probably going to be our right leg, so it's going to be R for right, and then foot plate, which is what this is. Okay, it's already been converted to an editable poly, so we don't need to worry about that, but we do need to start moving things about a bit. Adjust the thickness. We don't want it too thin, we don't want it too thick. I'm going to move it up just a tiny bit off the main grid. Once I've reset it to 0 on all three axes, there we go, and turn off the grid too. Now underneath here, I'm just going to inset this a little bit, and then I'm going to bevel it down just for shape. Like so. Okay, and this is just to add a level of interest to the piece and give it a little bit more definition than it has. Now at the top here, I'm going to do a 0 length bevel. Let's bring that into there, then down like that. Okay, so that gives us that shape. Right, now remember what I said about wanting to build toes and how I'm going to have the toes just come out one at each side. So for this I'm going to need to build my toes. Now if anyone here is a veteran of the now getting considerably older APU set, you may remember that I think I spent something like 2 lessons showing how to make a toe or something like that. It doesn't need to be that hard. What I'm doing at the minute is kind of roughing the shape, taking it where I need it to be. Now my toe's going to slope down, so I need to take that into account. It's going to come down like that. Now I'm going to do a connect here. Now, if I'm using 3ds Max 2010, I can use this bar on the top. I happen to know that you're using 3ds Max 2009 or 9 or whatever the hell it is, T side, so I'm going to take that into account. Move that to there. I can bring that to round about there like so. Now we don't want too much of an angular shape here, so again I'm going to be quite careful with this. To take these end verts. Pardon me. It stopped snowing outside the window again, so that's quite good news. There's a chance I might actually make it to this thing. Okay, straight through the middle here, and I'll do a connect, and this time I'm going to 0 it on the slide. Then I can bring that up a little bit. Okay, and that adds a nice curve to it, which does give it an air of slightly more physical strength for some reason. When you've got angles, very straight angles, you don't tend to get that kind of demonstrative level of strength that you do with with a nice kind of semi-curved edge like this. Okay, now what I need to do is work on how this connects into this, which isn't particularly difficult. All we need to do is make sure that there's a big enough hinge to support the toe. If we put a small hinge, then it's going to look like it's going to snap the second it puts its foot down on it. So for something this big, looking at this toe, if we're prepared for this toe to support its weight, we're going to need a hinge about the same size as the toe, if you get where I'm coming from, and hopefully you do. So this is an easy enough thing to do. First of all, I'm going to do a connect all the way down the middle, like so. Then I can chamfer this a little bit wide. I like to make use of plenty of the polygon modeling tools here. Okay, now I'm going to make this one a little bit wider. Okay, because again, like I say, we need the strength here. And now, if I do an extrude to about there, and we need to take into account the level and depth of this extrude because it's quite an important part of it. Okay, next I'm going to grab here and just do a quick ring and then another connect. Okay, now as long as I've got that on a 0 for slide, I can then delete these two here, and what I'm going to do is just select both these and do a hinge from edge. I'm going to carefully pick my hinge, give an angle of 180 degrees. Now depending on how many polygons you want this piece here to be, this is where you decide. I'm going to probably stick 8 in, that'll be enough for me. It gives us a 16-sided cylinder when we decide to close it up. Now, I mash delete there, that gets rid of this inside polygon that we'll have created. And then if I just do a marquee select and mash the weld button, you'll notice we lose a lot of verts, which is a great help to us. Okay, now, what we need to do is select these parts. So just use the select tool rather than the select and move or select and scale or select and rotate. I'm just going to select these inside parts here. And we're going to start getting into a bit of a roll here. I'm going to move, get a bit of speed. Okay, now I'm going to rotate this, just make sure angle snaps on, so just mash A. Just 180 degrees. We're going to clone it to a new object, and we're going to be calling this the toe, well, we'll call it toe connect pin 01, because obviously there's going to be more than one of them, and this is going to be toe 01. Now, because we don't want to be sitting here, you know, faffing about making sure that we've got all sorts of, oh, what do you call it again? Because we don't want to be messing around basically making sure that we've got pistons and things to control it, we just need to give it enough strength that it looks like we don't need pistons to control this, which is absolute sci-fi nonsense, but it makes things easier for us. Okay, connect here and here. So I've selected these two borders, and I'm just going to cap them. I didn't like that very much, did it? Oh, hang on, they're not even in the right place anyway. Let's just move those a bit. Hang on. What I'm going to do is just move this along, whilst hoping 3ds Max doesn't crash. Okay, because it needs to be there, which is on this pivot. Rather than cap, I want to bridge. Okay, and that connects that into there, so you can see that we've got this kind of toe area here coming in now where it should be. Now we can do a little bit of refining over here. As long as we maintain our edge, we should be fine. I'm just going to bring that up to about there. Bring that down to about there. Now, straight edges never look strong enough, so we can strengthen this by the simple expedience of adding a couple of curves to it in a minute. Now, you may notice that this is somewhat wider than the end piece here. That's not really a problem as far as I'm concerned. It depends. If you want to be able to add extreme flexibility to the toes, we can actually have this as a pivot, and then you could wire this to a slider anyway. But overall, I'm pleased with how that is going. I'm just going to ring that and do a quick connect, and that will allow me just to add slightly more curve there and there. And curves, like I say, always represent slightly more strength in this kind of instance, like that. Okay, that's fine. Next, what I'm going to do is just start checking the positioning of my pivots for these. So I'll just go into my left viewport, and the pivot for this now needs to be moved all the way over to here. So effect pivot only, and I'm going to move it to here. Now you can be as precise or imprecise as you want. Some people hate placing pivots by high. Other people are like, well, this is so much easier. You know, if you've got a good eye and a steady hand, do it this way. If you haven't got this sort of coordination, then for God's sakes, don't. I'm going to do the same again over here and just place this at this axial point here. Okay, drop back into perspective. Let's go into our top view. Now, as we can see, this has been offset on the left a little bit, which is no use to us at all. So effect pivot again. And I'm going to move this to the center. Now, you can spend more time than me defining where the center of this is. I don't unfortunately have that luxury at the moment. Okay, and zoom out. So now, if I take this part here, these aren't linked, and for goodness sakes, don't link them until we need to. If you start linking them, we're going to start having problems. Now all I'm going to do is just basically turn them around like this, 180 degrees. And this will come to the back. And just stick there. And then if I select both of these, and move them 90 degrees like so. There we are. So that gives us our simple foot piece just there. Pardon me. Okay, now we have this basically this kind of ankle plate, which is what this is here, which is our foot plate. We've got all our named toes. That's fine. Okay, so what we need to do now is create a layer for this. So if we go up here to our manage layers, and what I'm going to do is select everything here, and I'm going to create a new layer containing my selected objects, and this layer I'm going to rename foot. There we go, and now I can hide it, or I can freeze it so that we don't accidentally do anything to it. I can make it non-renderable and all that kind of jazz, which is very helpful for me. Okay, now back to where we were again. What I've got to do now is build a kind of faux method of having the ankle interact with the lower leg. So for that, the simplest way to do it really is going to be a ball socket. So what I'm going to do is build a ball socket, and you're going to see a lot of places here where we can put mechanical parts in, trust me. So let's bring this up like that, and I'm going to bring this lip in. Now, if you don't have this kind of coordination, you may want to use the transform type in, or, well, not the transform type in, the, what do you call it, the little kind of settings box thing. The inside of this doesn't need to be that realistic unless you're blowing it apart, okay? However, I'm putting it in just, well, frankly, because I'm retentive in that kind of way. Okay, and that'll give us slightly more control there. Now, inside of this, I'm going to build a sphere, and I'm going to use auto grid, which lets me build it on top of other pieces, and I'm going to build it pretty much straight out from the middle, like that. There, and you can see now that this kind of fills that part there. I'm going to drag it up, and so it's in the right position, and start dropping the radius down. Okay, because this is obviously going to be where our foot gets its kind of ankle ball control from. Just snap up the radius a bit until it more or less fills there. And I'm going to change the segments to about 24. Simply because I don't need that many. You might, so that's entirely up to you. Okay, and this will become our lower leg. And it's our right lower leg, so I'm going to put a R in front of it. Like so. Okay, now, what can we do with this? Well, I need to trim it first, because we want some movement, but we don't want too much. We only need a little bit of flexibility in our ankles. Our ankles don't shoot up 90 degrees to our feet, that'd be weird. So let's loop that. Control select by polygon. Now you'll notice we've got these two loops here, so I'll select this one instead. There, now I'll do a ring. No, I mean a loop. Control, select by polygon. Mash delete. I can delete this top part too now. Now you can see it's not perfectly lined up, okay, and I apologise for that, but we're working fast here. Okay, and cap that. Now, what I'm going to do is build the base of our foot, and I need to build in a certain degree of detail as I go. So I'm going to be drawing with the bevel tool. Coffee. Ugh. Okay, so what I need to do is just using my kind of reference that I've got in the other screen there so I can see what I'm doing as well. I'm going to grab here and start the beveling process. And I use small bevels basically because they catch the light when it comes to render time, and it means I don't have to chamfer quite so much. Now if I just go up and down until I reach that point there, and I'm going to bring it out over the top of my toes like that, and up like that, and now I'm going to bring this in. Now I want to make a lip on the inside of this. Okay, and I'll bring this up again. And that lip's where the outside control pistons are going to be. I don't like that piece, so I'll do that one again. I keep thinking I'm using my ball mouse, and I've retired my old Microsoft ball mouse. Okay, now this goes into here. And this is where we're going to have our central main piston, which goes up to here. Now we're going to add a little break just here, and again just straight out up to there, not too high. Want a good thick piston. If it's too thin, the leg's not going to look like it will support itself. And straight down. Okay, so this is our base piston for our leg. So this is our lower leg, and I'm going to change its name to lower leg because there's two parts of the lower leg, rather intriguingly, until it reaches the knee. Right, actually no, I'll just call it lower leg. Let's just not be awkward here. Okay, now we've got our first part here to add to our lower leg group. So we open up our layers. I'm going to create a new layer, lower leg. I always use underscores in between. It's just an old habit of mine. However, it serves me well. Okay, so there's our lower leg piece here, which is going to eventually come up to our knee. So if I want it to come up to our knee, I'm going to grab this polygon here, just shift and drag it a little bit, and clone to object our knee, because that's what it is. Okay, now flip it, grab here, just shift and drag like that, and then cap it. Now we can go straight into work, just making this look a bit nicer. So it's a little bit more awkward when you've got your bevels kind of facing away from you, so just take your time. And all I'm doing is adding detail in here. Now let's have a look at that. I'm going to make sure that this actually comes out to the same width more or less as that. Okay. And straight up. Now I'm going to come out like that instead because it's a nice shape. And to there. Okay, and then inside this, that's where we're going to have presumably our bearings and things that are going to connect it to the knee that goes above it. which is basically the upper thigh. This is the knee here, okay, and it's going to connect to the upper thigh here, so it's going to have some form of rotation that it doesn't necessarily need. Okay, so again, just kind of looking at this shape here, and we're kind of ready to start building the next section of things that we're going to need on this to add our support to our model. So for this, what I'm going to build is a simple cylinder, and just make sure it's coming out in the right area. Okay, and I'll just drag it out here. And up. Okay, now we're going to have to make sure these pistons are long enough. So, in order for this to work, they're going to have to be roughly half the size of this. Now, I think what I'll do is I'll create them on the ground plane, not that you can see it. And then move them into position and resize them. Okay, because we need some flexibility with these and with their design in how these are going to work. Because these are actually the very complicated systems we're going to be using to drive this, and for this to work, well, you'll see, it's not the easiest. However, it does give certainly a very satisfying feel to the model. Okay, don't worry if you don't understand what I'm talking about. Rename this one in a minute. First of all, let's just get busy on it. I'm going to bring it down to this, which is about half the height we need. Bring this up a little bit. Now we can cheat if necessary. That's one of the good things about 3D, is that we can cheat a lot if we have to. I prefer not to, though. Alright. I'm going to need to add a ball rotating joint on the bottom of this, by the way, so I'll do that shortly. Right, next. If we go in here, I'm going to go into the bevel tool and just bring it in a bit and down. I'm going to bring it out a little bit like that and down, and then I'm going to start bringing it in. Now, if you can't make a decent hemisphere using the bevel tool, it's worth practicing because it saves you a lot of time in the long run. I mean, it's not a completely accurate hemisphere, but it's accurate enough for what we need. Failing that, you could always paste half a sphere onto it, so, you know, there are options. Right, and as you see, our pivot point is in the right place, if it's here. Next, what I'm going to do is grab this part and detach it as a clone. I'm not going to bother giving it a funky name yet, because we've got more than enough stuff to do without having to worry about funky names. And I'm just going to flip it. And I'm just going to pull this out now. Like so. Now, what I need to do is take into account the fact that this is basically designed to clip onto the left-hand side. Well, on the left-hand side of what you're seeing at the moment. Because of this, what I need to do really is start kind of evening out this shape a little bit. I've said before, curves give us a kind of aura of strength in the model, and they do. However, we still need to take into account the fact that we can't have too many curves on a straight-edged mech like this without losing a lot of the strength of our model. So if I just pull that in like so, and then I can just pull it this way, and you'll see that that gives us quite a nice shape there. I'm going to move those edges in a little bit there soon. We'll do again here. Let's use the scale tool again. Now we're just going to use overlaps. If I was doing this in a much more precise manner, which I'm not today, then I would be all kind of, oh, we've got to be careful, we've got to make sure that we blend it into the rest of the model and so on. But in this case, I'm basically just attaching these things to each other. Okay, if you want to spend ages refining your model later, that's entirely up to you. Okay, now we have to build the clamp that's going to kind of attach this piston system onto the side of this. So just grab here, like that, and we can cap off the bottom. Now the thing about capping off the bottom is we should probably do some quick cuts, because they stop our polygons from breaking. Okay, like that. And now we have slightly more flexibility in adding a minor curve to this, not too much, just a little bit. I'm going to bring these two edges in here. Again, this is an ergonomic decision based on the fact the curve will appear to give it more strength. Okay, that's cool. Now what we're going to do is just grab both these parts and move it up like this, and we can make it appear even stronger in the way that it attaches to this simply by grabbing here, and we'll do a quick ring, connect, and chamfer. Didn't grab the chamfer there correctly. There we go. Important to get this bit right if I can. It doesn't matter too much, it doesn't have to be 100%. You do, I don't. Me teacher, you student, it work well. Okay, now let's extrude this out. And again, we can just use the scale tool. And the good thing about that is, if I pulled it over like that, if we render it, you can see the gathering of the shadows underneath if you're using global illumination, which makes it look like it's clamped on. And we can add some little rivets and things to hold it in place later on too, so it all helps. Okay, we've got that part. Now let's model the top part of this. And for the top part, I'm going to go in here. Snow still isn't coming back, so that's good news for the chance of being able to teach on Wednesday. Pull that in and down. Not too far down. That'll do. One of the 3D Palace pets is mooching around. Okay, now what I'm going to do is detach this as a clone, and I'll give it a cunning name soon, because that's what you do. Got to try and select it first. Ha, got you. Now I'll flip it. And if I just grab this part, like so, I'm going to bring it up to about here, so it's good and long. Then at the top of this we're going to cap it, and we're going to build another ball socket at the end. Now the good thing about this is you can literally have as many as you want. Once you've created one, you can have loads. They're great in that respect. So, let me see, bevel. And the good thing is you can copy them as well once you've made them. Like loads of times. Okay, I'll just bring this in. Now bear in mind you need to change the pivot point on this when you do it. Okay, because our pivot point will not be in the correct place on this one. Our pivot point will be down there somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to grab this part here. Before I do, let's change the pivot point. So as you can see, the pivot's down there at the minute. Let's just move the pivot up. There. Next, if I grab this part, just detach it. I'm not going to give it a name yet. I can give all these parts names soon once I've got loads of them, and trust me, we're going to have a lot of objects when we're finished with this leg, because legs are incredibly complicated when it comes to mechanical things, because legs are the entire basis of the model pretty much. Right, let's flip that. Okay, pull this out. And again, what we did last time we can do here, or we could just have this kind of attach as a semi-hemisphere into this, or whatever we want. I think I'm going to go for what I just mentioned there, because I think that'll work quite nicely actually. So if I grab these, I'm going to be careful how I do this. And if you're finding this isn't working, it's probably because you don't have the right number of sides, incidentally, on your cylinder. But thankfully, I do. Which means I can do this. Okay, and that gives me this shape here. Now, what I'm going to want to do really is kind of curve this across a little bit, because I think that'll give me a nicer shape. Oops, let's redo that. So, pull that up to about there. And I'm going to cap these parts. Well, bridge those parts anyway. Okay, and if I do that, then I can hinge from edge. Pick my hinge, and it's that one. And do a quick 90-degree spin. Put in 2 segments. I can reduce that angle a little bit because it's a bit heavy, and then extrude this straight out like that. Now the thing is, inside here is some polygons that I don't want. There we go. And of course the problem is that these don't actually match up and aren't going to join either. So what I'm going to do is basically cull them using a target weld. Which is a messy way of doing it, but it's effective for what we need. You could just boolean it or do anything else you want, to be quite honest. Let's clean out some more of these. Good thing is that this part here is actually facing the inside of this, so we don't even need to see it. I mean, we could just remove this entire back face, to be quite honest, and it wouldn't be any particular loss. So as you can see, that'll just go straight into there. This curve makes it look a lot stronger, and like I say, we can just bring this down a little bit. Angle it in a little. Just gives it a little bit more in chest definition, whatever you want to call it, really. Okay, so that gives us this piston here. Now we're going to need to set this piston up, so let's just check the pivots are correct. That's correct, that's correct, that's correct. That isn't remotely important anyway. Now, to set up a simple piston system on this, if we didn't have these top and bottom mounts separate, then we could use dummies to control this. As it stands, we don't really need to because we've got these top and bottom pieces here, but we do have to be careful in the way that we use them. You have to make sure that the X forms are reset on them and all that kind of jazz. And it's useful as well if we make a workbench. So if I just do a quick save as, and wait a few minutes, look out the window. Sexy 3D. That was a particle system, which shows how sad I am in that I think particles are sexy. Let's go to my Animex folder, and I'm going to use my workbench. Okay, just so that I've saved it off. That way if some sort of horrible catastrophe happens, which happens quite a lot in 3ds Max, trust me, I'll be able to go back and repair it. Okay, now, pistons, like I say, let's start renaming them. So, R piston lower mount leg 01, R piston lower leg 01, R piston lower leg upper 01, R leg lower piston upper mount 01. Yes, it's over elaborate, however, at least I know what they are. Okay, now we can do a lot using the lookout controller as long as all our pivots are set up properly. Okay, so what I'm going to do is set this one up first. So, in order for this to work, I'm going to link this to this. Linking, if you've never used it before, is one of those amazingly useful things where this now moves when I move this. That's all. And this is going to be useful because... Get back there, you. This is going to be useful because... Why have you not moved? You see, this is what I'm talking about, isn't it? This is why I have workbench copies. I think I'll just reload my workbench. Won't be a moment. Right, as you can see, I'm reloading 3ds Max again because it decided to throw a big old wobbler. Thankfully, however, that is why I decided to save a workbench copy. And if we just click on it, we should have it back. There we go. Right, again, like I say, set up the links. I'm not going to go over the naming stuff now, I'll do it after I've saved. Okay, and all I'm going to do now is, in my motion panel, assign controller, rotation. I'm going to open this little checkbox, and I'm going to have a lookout constraint. I'm going to add my lookout target, which is this. Now, as you can see at the moment, it's decided to... The lookout target, by the way, is the mount. It's looking at something completely different. So we can select the lookout up axis, in this case the Z, and turn off the add lookout target. And now, if I move this side to side, you'll see it's following it as it should. Okay, that's good, but what about the top one? Well, we need this to now look at this. Okay? So this way we don't have a closed loop dependency. They can't look at each other, but this can look at this, and this can look at this, or this can look at this. Either works fine. So let's have that look at that, because if it looks at this, the pivot for this, it's always going to be looking in the right direction. So rotation again, and lookout constraint, add lookout target. Now you'll notice the z-axis, obviously it's pointing straight upwards because its z-axis was pointing straight upwards. So we can flip that and then it'll come down again. And now these are all looking in the right direction, as you can see. So if I lock that into there now, like so, we should have a working pivot system. And if I was to be bending this now from here, So if I was to bring this knee forward, for example, I'd need to link this on first, but this would move with it. So if I select all these, like this, I haven't linked it to the main leg yet. Now I'm going to spin this around. Now when I spin it around, it's going to go screwy for a bit. Make sure angle snap's turned on as well. So just 180 degrees. You'll notice everything snaps into place. And then I can just move it just over here until it's in the right position. Again, I'm going to select these. I don't need to select any controllers or anything because they're already built into it. So I'll just rotate it 90 degrees. This time it'll do it again. They've cleaned it up a lot since early versions of Max. But if we're using this on Max 9, it'll be kind of a bit mad. So there we go. We now have our 4-point piston rig built into this. What you could do if you just want to be completely over elaborate and over the top is just completely surround it by pistons if you want. That's entirely up to you. Now down here, this part, which is this piston here, needs to be moved. So before we do, we need to set the base of this part. So I'm going to affect my pivot only. It's going to go there. And if I select this part, we're in orthographic, I prefer perspective. What I can do is isolate it. Okay, and in isolation mode now I have a lot more vestige of control than I would otherwise. Select all this and I'm going to detach it. And for this, this is lower leg, main, piston. It's the right lower leg, so I'll put it on an R. Okay, now the pivot's been set to the same as the other ones anyway. And what I can do here now is just build it. An end cap, just using the bevel tool. It won't be especially accurate, but it'll be accurate enough. Just what matters. Okay. Because we need this obviously to rotate independently, because otherwise we're not going to get enough movement on our ankle. This is our lower leg as it connects into the ankle, yeah? Don't worry, it all makes perfect sense, I promise you. Exit isolation mode. Alright, now what we're going to do is, as we did before, checking on these and this, I'm going to have this set up a lookout target, my rotation, so lookout constraint, add lookout target, and it's going to look up here at this, and again just change the z-axis, flip it because it's the wrong way up, and then here where we have this one, I'm going to make this one's lookout target the bottom plate down here. And so again with this one, click the little box, making sure I've unpaused everything. Lookout constraint, and it's going to look down here at this, which is the R lower leg. It would help if I clicked add lookout target. The amount of times I've got that horribly wrong is ridiculous. And we can change the axis it's looking at it on. In this case, this. Now the axis for this is all wrong, so let's delete that lookout target again. And if you look, the pivot's all the way down here. So what I'm going to do is just change this back to a Euler. And if I change it back to a Euler, then I can move my pivot back up to where it should be. We're going to want it to move probably from about the middle of this piece. So effect pivot only. I mean the middle of the top, incidentally, not the middle of the bottom. I wondered why that one had flipped. It made no sense, but now it does. Go figure. Okay. Now if I go down here to the motion panel for this piece, I can turn off flip because it's now looking in the right direction again. And for this one, I can change rotation. Now my rotation will be look at. Add look at target. I'm going to add this. I'll just flip the Z channel. There, like so. Now we're still on orthographic, but don't worry about that. Okay, so that works well now. And what I need to do here is grab these 4 objects, and I can select these and link them to that. And these 4 objects, I can select and link those to that. Now, if all is working the way it should be, you'll notice we get our knee working now to a degree. This is our kind of ankle plate that the feet are going to be working on, yeah? And of course we get this beautiful flexibility in it, which cheers me no end because I love that kind of thing. See? Now we can add on to this to make it even more fun if we want to. So what I'm going to do here is go down to my dynamics objects. You'll notice we have springs here, yeah? So if I get my spring out and you'll see I haven't got auto grid turned on, so let's turn on auto grid. Very important for this kind of thing. Let's pull it out so it's the right width, and then pull it up to the right height. Now then, with this you need to overlap slightly in both directions for it to work properly. So let's have a look at it. And I'm going to give it a little bit more height so it just embeds in through the top. Now we can increase the turns on it. And if we're doing that, I'd like to change the number of segments to about 24 per turn, so it'll make it look smoother as well. Okay, now as you can see, that looks okay. Let's just check the pivots on that and that. Right, now we can bind this to our object pivots. So for our top pivot we can literally bind it to that. For our bottom one we can bind it to that. Now, as you notice, this end here is a little bit loose. We could apply an edit poly to that if we wanted to as well. I'm going to sneeze. Be glad that I moved the microphone. Right, so what does that do, adding this spring to it? Well, we now have a damper that responds correctly. And we can call this more or less depending on how we feel about the whole deal at the time. See? So you can have it completely enclosed in a spring if you want or not. I'm going to take this down to about 4 turns. I don't think we need any more than that. You could also have it counterclockwise if you want, just depending on how, you know, how you feel about the whole deal. Okay, so that's given us our sprung knee, like so. Now, the good thing about this is that we have additional flexibility down here in our foot if we need it, but we can make our rig literally end at the foot and manipulate this entire part here just using slider controls, just to give us a slightly greater control of motion. So what we've got is the equivalent of the end of our foot, and this is the ankle. It doesn't look that way, but it is. Okay, so in the next part, what we're going to do is build an operating knee area for this, because this isn't really the knee, this is the operation for the lower leg. It just doesn't look like it. And of course everything operates from this part here at the moment, because it's all driven from the top. Let's check that again. It is nice, isn't it? I like that. Okay, so I'll see you in the next part, and until then, goodbye for now.